Okay, very good. Good evening. Do I have a motion to reconvene the Finance Committee meeting of October 3rd, 2023?
So moved.
All right. We have a motion for to reconvene from Alder Gerhardt. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Guys have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Jim. First up on the agenda is Human Resources, and we have Sarah Olson in Chambers. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Finance Committee. Significant accomplishments in HR this year. We're developing the city's mission, vision, and update of core values. So there's a survey out. It closes Friday. We've had over 100 responses already. So we'll go through that feedback, and then we look to present the final mission, vision, and core values in December to the Personnel Committee. So super exciting. We coordinated with Baker Tilly to perform the city's organizational review and staffing study. So they presented that in August to the Personnel Committee, and we have a 3 to 5 year staffing plan. We implemented an employee referral bonus program for sworn law enforcement. We've had 3 referrals to date, and that closes at the end of this year. We coordinated the recruitment and selection of the city's first deputy city administrator, and we're excited to have Adam aboard. We implemented a police department retention payment and onboarding stipend program. So this was presented last month at council. We were using police vacancy savings to give retention bonuses and show appreciation for the staff in the police department. The onboarding stipend is for new police officers and to kind of help offset the costs associated with job changes. As we move into the new year, I'm really excited to start working on a summer youth job shadowing program. This would be for high school youth in the community to just get them exposed to different careers in government. We've got city planners, a forester, HR, finance. There's a number of avenues in government. So just looking at how we can create a program. And then I'm really excited to see NeoGov Attract in the mayor's proposed budget. As you recall, Baker Tilly suggested that HR needed a full-time talent acquisition specialist. This would be someone in charge of recruitment. This software allows us for us to hold hiring campaigns. I was able to email over 1,000 people regarding our police officer opening. I had a free demo of the software, and we had 5 applicants in the first week. So I'm really hopeful that this will, once we're done with the demo, we can actually, if we purchase the software, which we're intending to do, we can reach anyone who's ever applied for any government position in the United States. So really exciting as we try to get people to come here, especially as lateral police officers. And then as we look forward to budget changes for the coming year, we're looking at a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in January on the permanent non-union employee pay plan and the hourly LTE seasonal intern pay plan. Looking at adding a 1% pay for performance base for permanent non-union employees are within the merit range. Looking at increasing the paid on call and paid on promise from $9 an hour to $12 an hour. With certifications, we should have many of them at that $15 minimum, if not a little bit higher. So very exciting. Health insurance premiums went up. Every year they do go up, but they went up pretty substantially this year. Employee trust funds that administers our health insurance did say that the rise is due to people who kind of did not seek health care during COVID and shortly after COVID. So now they have everyone rushing to the doctor to seek care. So that's one reason for the insurance rate increase, and of course inflation. Wisconsin retirement system contribution rates rose, our highest, 8.3% for protective employees. Unfortunately, our workers' compensation insurance premium went up by $45,000. This is the first year in a really long time that we've been above 1.0 for our workers' comp modification factor rate. That rate is given to us. What it is it looks at other comparable size municipalities and their number of workers' comp claims. We had 3 substantial indemnity claims in our fire department. They were not able to get any type of clearance to come back to work. So when that happens, the rates for our workers' comp can increase. So hopefully with this coming year, we can look at having, less workers' injuries, and we always do strive to get people back to light duty work and working within their restrictions. But in these 3 cases, we did not have clearance from their doctor to get them back. So everyone is off of that at this time. So we have everyone back to work. So. The Attract module that I spoke about earlier in the new initiatives, there is a little bit more of a cost the first year due to the setup and training fee. And then I was really excited to see in the mayor's proposed budget, Amy, our HR generalist, moving to 1.0. So she's a 0.8 FTE right now. And it's been really hard. It's been hard being the only full-time HR person for 275 employees. So having her go full-time when we have more hires, more FMLA, more workers' comp is going to help substantially. So between that and the attract module that will enhance our hiring, I really feel confident that we can try to fill these hard to fill positions and the challenges that we have with police recruitment and engineers as well, and kind of hold us over until future years when we can actually add more staff to the HR department. And then this was the first year I added a summer intern, but I would like to probably always propose that every year. I think it's a great opportunity to get somebody exposed to the field and give them a project and just be able to help develop someone. So I wasn't able to get that in the budget for 2024, but maybe the following summer. Do you have any questions I can answer?
And I'm really happy to hear about that NeoGov Attract software. That sounds incredible because I can't believe how much you do with the amount of staff resources that you have. So I think that's a great use of resources for the city. So I'm really pleased to hear about that.
Thank you.
Very good. I don't believe there's any additional questions.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I do appreciate your time. Have a good evening. All right. Next on the agenda is the category is clerk, and we have Tracy Oldenburg, our city clerk, and she is online. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you. Our significant accomplishments in 2023, we worked with finance and IT staff to implement the OpenGov online application and payment program for our pet licenses, our alcohol licenses, and our operator's license applications. It's working really well. It's been really easy to use, and even the applicants comment on how great it is. We're currently working with finance and IT staff to implement a contractor review process, and that is very close to the testing stage. So we're hoping to test that in the next couple of weeks. We also coordinated 2 elections in 2023, including the mayoral race and the Justice of Supreme Court race in April. And as always, we're always continuing to educate voters on using the MyVote website and requesting absentee ballots. How the ease of that through the MyVote website is really good tool. So we're trying to train on that as much as possible. Notable initiatives for 2024, coordinating polling location change for District 3 to vote, District 3, Ward 12 to vote at Doxa Church. We feel that this will eliminate some of the lines at the community center by moving that ward to that polling location. Coordinate adding a 6th polling location for District 4, Ward 19 to Blackhawk Church. That will alleviate some of the lines at the polling location for the fire station number 1. So we're excited that we're getting a 6th polling location and looking forward to implementing that in 2024. We're also going to continue to work with IT on adding event licenses and applications to the OpenGov. That would be our street use, our sound permit applications, any type of event that's going on in the city that requires a permit. We'd like to have that through OpenGov as well. And we're working with other departments to implement a potential DocuSign program for electronic signatures. Also participate in a project to remodel the front counter. That's kind of an ongoing project. We're hoping that we'll get some bids for that this winter and implement that and have that under construction in February or April. So. And our significant budget changes from 2023 to 2024, we've increased the pet license fee by $1 to account for an increased postage rate to mail out the licenses. OpenGov, they apply through the OpenGov program, but we still need to mail that physical license to them. So now that more people are using this program and not coming in person, that cost to mail those tags has gone up. So we revised a fee for picnic license for temporary operator's license to include the cost of a background check. We found that each background check costs the city about $7 to do that background check. Currently, we're only charging $10 for the picnic license fee, so that will kind of offset that background check a little bit. And then we're also increasing the fee for the special event and large-scale festival events from $150 to $160. We haven't had an increase since before 2008 when I started with the clerk's office. So it's a small increase, but I think to just kind of help offset some of these additional costs and some of the extra work that is involved with this will help. And adding election equipment for the 6 polling location, maintenance fees for additional DS200 tabulating machines to the election expenses. We've got an increased cost for absentee envelopes. The redesign of these absentee envelopes cost us to have an all new stock order. We cannot use any of our existing stock because it completely changed that template. So that'll result in additional cost for purchasing all new absentee envelopes. The increased use of absentee voting and resulted in the increased cost for absentee envelopes, labels, and staff time for processing. And then also we're adding postcard notifications for the District 3 Ward 12 change of polling location and the District 4 Ward 19 additional polling location to voters that are affected by that. We've got an increased postage rate, so that'll result in additional expense for absentee voting and mailing of pet licenses, like I talked about in the previous slide about that $1 increase. And for reduction, we've shifted $625 for the digital signage expense to the FACT TV budget. Reduced in the professional service budget due to the full service supplementation subscription with Civic Plus with Municode. That's putting all of our ordinances online. We're able to just pay a one-time fee of a subscription fee, so we don't have all these additional expenses coming up. So it's nice that they're offering that to us, and we're going to take advantage of that, hopefully. And then we added additional funds for Type C notice for potential fall 2024 referendum. And then we've shifted $9,290 for the copier lease and maintenance fees to the IT budget. And then we have an increase for limited time employment of an election worker, and we've added overtime hours due to additional elections. Next year, we're going to 4 elections and the additional polling location. So in my for the LTE, this person will help with in-person absentee voting, assist us with voter registration, help us with keeping accurate records for absentee ballot requests, help us with getting those out in the mail, processing them when they come back in the mail. With 2024 being in a presidential year, our hours are increasing significantly with the work that needs to be done, the in-person absentee voting, just the volume of work that'll take place for that election alone. I'm asking for additional hours, not only for the LTE staff, but the current clerk staff and the election workers. We've kind of done this every other year. When we have a 4 election year, those hours go up, and then when we have the 2 election year, they tend to go down. So it really fluctuates every other year. So yeah, that's all I got. Any questions? Am I missing anything?
No, I don't believe so. Alder Gerhardt has a question.
I'm curious about this all sounds great, Tracy. I'm curious about the election. I was just looking at the budget expenditure for election supplies, which includes a lot of the supplies for the new, it's page 392. Looking at all the supplies for the new polling place, and I assume some of this is increases because of it's a presidential election year, and there's obviously more costs associated with that type of election. I'm just curious, how much does it? Because right now the difference is about $60,000. Is that how much it costs to open a new polling place, or is that a mix of switching the polling place to permanently to Doxa Church for District 3? I guess part of my question is, like, if we were going to add another one in the future, like, what is the cost of a new polling place? Is it 60,000?
Right around that, there is quite a large increase in just the equipment needed for a polling location, as you can see in that expenditure detail report. There's added maintenance because you're adding additional machines, so we have a maintenance fee. So instead of having, say 6 DS200s, you go to 9. So that adds the increase in the maintenance fee. A lot of these are one-time costs just because they are just for the equipment needed for a polling location. The voting booths, we need additional voting booths, postcard notifications. So most of this is pretty much a one-time cost, except for the maintenance fees. Those will be the same every year. Your absentee envelopes, that is always an added expense, and that kind of fluctuates throughout the year based on whether we have a 2-year election or a 4-year election. So I hope it helps. Whether it's 60,000 or not, every time we add a polling location, it just depends on how much equipment we need to staff that location and stock that location. And of course, what those fees are based on year to year.
That's really helpful, just for context going into the future. And then my other question too is that you mentioned DocuSign in the significant budget changes, but I assume that there's a cost for that software. I didn't see it listed. It's in the IT budget. Okay.
There is. It's in the very early stages. We're just kind of meeting with them just to kind of see what the program is and what it does, and if it's something that we feel will be a good fit for the city.
Great.
So it's very early stages, but it is something that we're looking at and talking about. So
sounds like a good change that could improve efficiency significantly. So yeah, thank you.
All right.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Very good. Are there any additional questions or? Okay. Seeing none or hearing none. Tracy, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good evening. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item is the information and technology, and we have Rob Kodonsky. You have the floor.
Correct. Thank you very much. In the IT department, significant accomplishments for 2023 include upgrading our PX rail infrastructure equipment. That is actually a piece of equipment I spoke with you about last week that we were getting through the finance committee and the common council. We now have the okay to go ahead to purchase that equipment, and before the end of the year, the idea is that we will transition over to that new equipment. So hoping that will be within the 2023 accomplishments. The contract review on-base workflow process has been developed. It's now being built and is sometime in November. The Oakland Gov implementation was a big project on my end for my position. We got that rolled out pretty much as completely as we have it to the currently early this year, in the first couple months of the year. So far, feedback has been mostly positive, and looking to expand on that greatly in the end of this year and then going into next year. We hired, I got put into the applications and systems administrator position, which then we had to backfill an IT technician position. So a bit of it was a big year for job changes in our department, especially with our department head leaving a couple months ago as well. And then we are transitioning our servers over to a newer version. This has been a big project for our network administrator this year, and it's ongoing. We had a number of servers that are using an operating system that is going to be out of service shortly. So it's been a big project to move all those servers onto create new servers and move those processes over to them, running the newest version of the operating system that is out there available. Notable initiatives for next year would be the City Hall Disaster Recovery Site implementation. And just to clarify, we do have equipment in our disaster recovery site now. This, as we discussed last week with the VX rail equipment, the idea is that once we have that process all completely finished, we'll be better situated in our disaster recovery site so that we can hopefully respond to that kind of scenario quicker, would be the idea. But we do currently have equipment in that disaster recovery site, and we have ways of restoring our servers back into a live environment if we did end up in that situation. It would just be a more time process for me. Another project would be MPSIS billing automation. This is something that I will likely be tackling next year, which is meant to hopefully free up some time for the IT director. Currently, billing MPSIS invoices is a bit of a time-consuming process, and that ends up falling on the IT director. So we're hoping to put a process in place in OnBase to try to streamline that and free up more of the IT director's time. We have Windows 11 upgrades coming. Windows 10 goes out of support next year. So a large part of what we'll be doing is either deploying new computers as a part of a replacement cycle that already have Windows 11 on them, which has already begun, or upgrading people's computers from 10 to 11, which will obviously come along with a little bit of training, although the changes aren't drastic between the two systems. We're going to move forward with implementing a backup internet connection so that to our offsite data center. Generally speaking, our internet connection has been quite reliable over the last handful of years since we moved to it, but we have run into a fiber cut or two here in the last year that greatly impacted our business flow, our workflows inside the building. So we're going to try to make it a priority to get a backup internet connection in place and up and running. And then continue the OpenGov expansion. That'll be a big project for me next year as well. Trying to get more departments involved and get far more processes into that system. Significant changes from this year to next is we have increased our professional services budget to include more block of hours to kind of give support to our network engineer. He has a lot of items on his plate. Some of them can be quite complex. And also, we currently don't have a real good way of backing up for him when he's on vacation or out of the office. And we've ran into issues where we have no choice but to reach out to him at times we really shouldn't need to be because he should be off worrying about other things. So since we don't have anyone in-house anymore who can really serve as that backup point to him, we're going to try to contract some hours with a vendor in the area to serve as that sort of emergency backup role, but then also to be a resource to him in projects that he might be tackling. We do have a pretty complex environment, and there are times where it can be nice to bounce ideas off of another networking professional, somebody with a little bit more experience in the equipment that he's working with. And having a block of hours to be able to rely back on for that would be very helpful for him. Added just $500 for internet backup burst fee, which is tied to that backup internet connection that we're going to try to get set up and running. That internet connection is in a place that we actually already have the internet there to use. It's just if we ever kick over to it in a disaster recovery type situation, or when our fiber were to get cut, they then charge you based on how much you're using. So we're just putting in a small budget item to try to cover that in case it were to happen. We added $10,000 for digital signage software, which ties to the that sort of digital signage projects that's kind of ongoing. We added a number of phone lines, all cell phone lines for new positions. Also, a couple of requests that came in from police, from departments that were looking for additional phones for employees that are already in the field, or in the case of police, we needed a couple more cell phones for some squad cars that were purchased. We also then shifted around $9,000 for the copier leasing and maintenance, which is really just a tactic. We're trying to move things to kind of make it easier to budget those and easier to pay for them, and with the longer term goal of trying to find a way of bringing them all into one provider and one vendor to try to simplify the purchasing of them, and then also the paying for, and also hopefully getting some sort of savings by trying to zero in a single vendor. Whereas right now, every department that needs one is sort of able to reach out and kind of set up their own contract if they want. We're thinking there'll be benefits to try to streamline that, so this is sort of just the first step in that direction. We only pitched one position for this next year. That was an IT intern. It was a position that we've had previously, and we ended up dropping it off of our work staff when we added the application and systems administrator. But we are working it back into, because we've had success with it. It can provide really good experience for college students, sometimes high school students. Also allows us to have some of our basic tasks taken over by somebody else for like a summer or whenever it works. But also we've now had an IT intern who was with us for a couple of years and did a really good job, has actually returned back to our department and is working as an IT specialist and has done a really good job hitting the ground running just because of all of his previous experience as an IT intern. So there's definitely, we've seen the benefit. I mean, we're living with the benefit right now of having this position in place. So it's just something that we're going to put back out there to possibly add back into the department since we've had such a good experience with it. Otherwise, that covers all my piece. So if there are any questions.
Yes, are there any questions? Alder Gerhardt.
I just have one. I'm looking at the page 402, account 245. Looking at all the software licenses and that we have, which is incredible. I was looking for that DocuSign, but one thing I noticed that we have 6,600 for social media archiving, and I was just wondering what that is. Is that like a open records requirement that we have? That I'm just not clear what that.
I'm not clear as to the original purpose. I do know we have something called Archive Social. I believe it goes through the same vendor who also we happen to do our city website through. I know that it is out there. Anybody who creates a social media account tied to the city is able to give access to that software to be able to then archive anything that any kind of transactions that are happening. I think that includes commenting and things like that. Just on the off chance we were ever going to need to for conceivably open records request or for our own purposes, wanting in case somebody posted something we wanted to be able to go back to and try to see if there was something we needed to look into and it got deleted. The archiving software should hopefully then allow us to be able to track that down. And if we needed to look into it for any purpose, law enforcement or otherwise, we would have that out there as a possibility.
All right. We have a question also from Chad.
I was just going to add that when that Archive Social was added, at least several years ago, that primary purpose was open records compliance. In the event we needed to have that information for an open records request. And then if you are looking for a reference to DocuSign in the budget there, the digital signature software on the last line of that column is what's been set aside for that potential purchase.
Great. I thought that's what that was. Is that an annual fee or is that a startup cost? I'm curious about
that's likely to be an annual fee. We're still trying to determine version and full costs on that, but this is a bit of a placeholder at this point in time.
Great. Thanks.
Rob, I have a question regarding, and you may have addressed it, but just for clarification, regarding the fiber cut earlier this year, mid-year, in your resolution to prevent that from happening in the future, is that, are you doing a reinforcement or a fiber loop? What is the remedy, I guess?
So our main live system is at that off-site secure site that's near in Fitchburg, but not in our city grounds. We currently have fiber dedicated running into there that gives us a fiber connection on our main provider. That building also has internet. They have a number of different internet providers that come into their building. you can then contract directly through that site, through the building, the folks that run the building itself, to then have a secondary internet connection available to you. We would more or less be connected to that in a way that we would be running almost no traffic through it. Most of the time, we'd be going to our normal fiber connection. But the idea being that if that fiber were to get cut, in theory, the device, our networking device in their location, should be able to, even on its own, detect that the fiber has gone down and then kick over to this internet that's provided by them. And then that's when we would potentially incur those burst costs, with the idea that once the fiber's back, it should be able to then fail back over to our main connection and get off of that sort of pay-per-use internet connection.
So the remedy then is with the fiber provider, that we're paying for that service if there is a fiber cut, without knowing the actual fiber route. I mean, it's their responsibility to make certain, since we're paying for that second option, they will.
Yeah, and the secondary option doesn't necessarily, our fiber provider isn't even involved in that process, really. This internet is being provided by an entirely different entity. So if the fiber gets cut, we're able to fail over to an internet connection that should not be affected by that cut.
Yeah, so they must be on some type of loop. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Is there any additional questions? All right, seeing none. Rob, thank you very much for your presentation. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Next on our agenda is Fact TV. It's Jeremy Crosby. Jeremy, you're online. Very good. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is doing good on day 2. I first just want to give a good shout out to the Fact TV staff enduring project after project after project. And we're used to dealing with projects, but we had a lot of projects this year as we go into our accomplishments with completing or hopefully to complete the first citywide communications plan by the end of the year into next year, completing our Genie Ceiling Room audio-visual update, the Francis Hudley Birch Council Chambers update, which you're all looking at right now. Beautiful, turned out great. The lights project in there as well. You're all reaping the benefits of it right now. Completed or will be completing the Fitchburg Public Library meeting room with the same type of audio-visual equipment that we've been are using currently in the Genie Ceiling Room. We'll have completed our digital signage project update as well, and of course, if you haven't had a chance, we rebuilt the Talking Fitchburg studio with Nick and I encourage you to check that out and invite any of the alders to join in on a great interview with myself, or maybe you want to hang out with Nick, whoever. But that's all there. Notable initiatives for 2024. We'll be implementing some of the initiatives that come out of our citywide communications plan. Review our Fact TV marketing strategies. Increase our live and local event coverage. We're seeing that bounce back post-COVID, and we're seeing a lot more of it. So as before COVID hit, we were working on broadcasting live for more locations when it comes to ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and citywide events. So we'll be working towards that. Moving down the list here then, significant budget changes for 2023-2024. I have an increased fee for production service membership in classes. That's updated fee schedule each and every year. Also removed the Chamber BB9 sponsorship fee. That was something that was in place actually a couple of years ago. Was removed a software piece that we were paying for that actually got bumped up from $500 or $400 up to $990 last year. We actually built this rundown template with our friends from finance, Misty, shout out, and are able to use this now even bigger and better than what we were paying for. So I appreciate her help on that. I had a replacement of one staff computer for 2024, excuse me. Our Santa rental, he went up a little bit. Santa has inflation too. Added a city council communications marketing association yearly membership to help with our communication strategy for the city. And then digital signage consolidated from multiple departments to Fact TV to keep our digital signage program moving forward. And then we're adding some minor equipment. Part of that. And between projects and everything else, and I appreciate my staff and everything they've done. And any questions that y'all have, happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the committee? Alder Gerhardt.
Just a very small question. I'm just curious why the Santa rental just doesn't seem like it fits in the Fact TV budget. I'm curious why, like, if there's why that's your guys' responsibility, I guess.
I don't, it happened actually, I'm just going to go back to 2010. Somehow Fact TV was embedded with you can't quote me on this because I don't know officially, but the recreation department put on that community event with the holiday party, children's holiday party, and somehow we became on the hook for Santa because we would tape the kids sitting with Santa and telling them what they want for Christmas. So that ended up on our budget, and it's just been that way ever since.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. I don't believe there are any questions. I don't see hands raised online. So,
we do have 2 new proposals for 2024, though, still. If you want to talk about those, Jeremy?
Sure. These proposals were put in by me, but were not included in the mayor's proposed budget. That was the reclassification of the community services manager to communications director, and a reclassification of the media services assistant manager to communications assistant director or similar. This reclassification and communication specialist, which is the next one, they're all tied together. What I believe we are turning the page here in our communication strategy, and since the town of Madison, the city's definitely stepped up its game, and we've learned that we can do better in communications, and I believe Fact TV should be the communications department. Which the department had positions to communications, and then also add a communications position that would basically encompass what the administrative assistant is doing with the city's social media stuff. Oops, am I breaking up?
Yes, you are.
My apologies. Maybe I'll just hide this video. Can you hear me better now?
No. Would you like me to? Yes. Okay. We are having some technical difficulty, but if you want to finish, Jeremy, and then we'll take a break after you're finished, if you can hear me.
I can hear you, and I apologize if that's on my end. Just to finish, I think the ultimate strategy here is that Fact TV has provided communications through multiple media outlets, and the city is at a point here where we're trying to build a communications plan and communication strategies, and that has all circled around what Fact TV has done the last several years. And I think this is the next direction for our department because we are providing the city residents with information, communications, and beyond. So.
All right. I'm not sure if you finished everything at this point. Okay.
I understand that you're having problems, so I'm I'm just going to stop there, and if you got any questions, try to answer them. If you need me to call in, I can go that route too, if it's on my end.
Very good. Well, are there any questions, Gabriella? Okay, or Jim? No, I don't believe so. So with that, I thank you very much, Jeremy. And since we are having technical difficulties, I've been asked to take a short recess. Do I have a motion to recess for 5 minutes?
So moved.
All right. Motion made by Alder Gerhart. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We will return in 5 minutes. Thank you. All right. Very good. We are back at 6:49 p.m. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
All right. Motion has been made by Alder Gerhart to reconvene. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. And we finished with Fact TV. We're moving on to legal, and we have our city attorney, Valerie Zisman, online. Valerie, you have the floor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will keep my presentation fairly brief. I guess my 1 minute overview is that it is essentially status quo for my budget. There's really no significant changes. Some of my accomplishments in 2023 have been an ongoing review of city code of ordinances, which included a number of revisions. This is really a task that's a significant accomplishment for me, frankly, every year, because every year there's a number of changes that need to happen, including, as I mentioned, finance ordinances. My other accomplishment this year was addressing a municipal court backlog, which resulted primarily from my being on leave, on parental leave last year. As you all know, I'm the only city attorney, and so rather than contracting out municipal court, we kind of strategically tried to handle as many cases as we could right before I went on leave, and then I kind of tried to double down and get caught up as fast as I could, and I did. So I think that was a pretty good accomplishment as well, and that really resulted in a savings to the city by not having to outsource that municipal prosecution while I was out on leave. The other significant accomplishment, which is an ongoing one, is that every year we have more and more cases in circuit court, municipal OWI cases primarily, that end up in circuit court rather than in municipal court. Those likewise would be fairly expensive to litigate in circuit court if we were to outsource it, but we've continued to keep those in-house. So the plan for next year is to continue to update ordinances as needed, and of course, continue to respond to all of the legal needs of the city on an ongoing basis. As I already mentioned, there are no significant budget changes from last year to this coming year. I'd be happy to answer questions.
All is quiet here.
I did say it would be quick.
All right, there is nothing further than Valerie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. All right, moving on to assessing, and we have Chris Leitz online. Chris, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. So one of our, I guess, kind of our large accomplishment was finishing a good chunk of our assessment work from really January until June, which was quite expedited. I think it was a huge effort from the rest of the team. Happy to have them. They did a great job. Made it very easy on me, the transition very easy on me. And in addition to that, absorbing a bunch of those Town of Madison parcels that we took on, there was a lot to do with those, both on the commercial and some of the residential side. But we got it done, and I'm very proud of their effort. And so to that end, one of our assessment technicians got promoted to be a property appraiser 1, and we also hired an outside hire for a property appraiser 1 position. So we're fully staffed out right now, which is great. We've kind of hit the ground running on 2024. Let's see here. And one of the things that I kind of quickly learned as I joined on was that there was kind of a need. You know, everybody in the department had kind of their own specific niche that they were knowledgeable in, and one of my goals was to provide kind of a comprehensive, training of the residential staff. So that way everybody's on the same page. There's a common knowledge base amongst staff, which ultimately makes us more uniform and consistent, which is so to that end, one of the other things that I tried to do as well was implement some new department policies and procedures, standards to make some of the operations in the department more efficient, cohesive, elimination of some duplicate work that was being done. So that kind of leads into our 2024 initiatives. One of the things that we're working on currently is a revaluation throughout the city. So there's a lot of large projects that have been identified within there that we're working on. I won't get too into the weeds into our assessment software and some of the stuff we're working on in there, but there's a lot of effort being done in that regard. So, and one of the other things that we're always working towards is making sure we're up to date and as current as we can be, making sure all of the information we have as far as assessment records, photos, sketches, land records, all that kind of stuff is available digitally. We'll always get, I think, requests for, kind of the hard copies of stuff. We always try to point people to our online portal because it's very useful. There's a lot of, insurance agents, realtors, whoever may want some of the information from us. We try to point them there because we're trying to teach people how to fish more or less, I guess. But so some of our significant changes from 23 to 24, I increased the per diem budget for board of review members. Over the last few years, we've had kind of increased board of review cases. And additionally, this year in particular, it seems as though there's been pretty heavy participation on the board side. I think at most of the meetings, all of the alternates have been there, which is great. It's good to get that kind of experience for folks on the board. So just trying to prepare for that increase in A, cases, and then B, for more board members being there. We increased our office supplies and postage accounts to reflect some of the increases therein. We added a tuition reimbursement for one employee in accordance with some of the city personnel policies. The interim assessor, Scott Winters, his name. He does a lot of continuing education and teaches a number of courses at, I believe, Waukesha County Technical College, specifically to assessment. So one of our employees has shown interest in trying to learn some of the more technical ins and outs of the field, and so it's valuable experience. And Scott does a great job with his education. So felt that was good. We removed the cost of mailings for personal property accounts since thankfully the personal property process or tax was repealed by state for 1/1 of 24. It's exciting stuff. And then lastly, we increased property appraiser overtime from, I believe last year it was 74 total hours to 80, just an even 40-40 split. Last year, one employee or one position was budgeted for 50 hours of overtime and the other was for 24 hours. I couldn't really glean why that was split that way, but I think it makes sense. Both property appraisers are doing kind of similar work. They're going to carry the load of a lot of the residential analysis and those kinds of projects. My guess is they'll need to do some overtime somewhere along the year. So I just wanted to make it even amongst positions. So, but other than that, that's kind of the bird's eye view. I'm happy to answer questions you might have.
Very good, Chris. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Hearing none. Chris, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good evening.
All right, you as well. All right, very good. Moving on. The next agenda item is EMS. And we have Chief Anderson online. Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, alders. So the significant accomplishments we had in 2023 is something I've talked about for the past couple of years, is the partnership we have with Madison College to increase the underrepresented populations in the field of EMS. So we actually started another young lady this fall, which started about a month ago. That internship program is a 2-year program that they ultimately graduate Madison College with a paramedic degree, a paramedic associate degree. Their first year is they complete all of their general education requirements while they have already completed their EMT basic course. So they get they ride somewhere between 72 and 96 hours a month with a mentor. So they're out there getting the experience that's going to help them with paramedic school while they're completing their gen eds. And then in their second year, they'll start the actual paramedic program and be partnered again with that mentor while they finish their degree. So we started our second one this fall. So she'll start, and then our intern from last year, she actually started her paramedic program this year. So it's been a great opportunity. I think hopefully we can graduate them and then snag them back as part of our own staff. Other thing, it's been a very one of the unfortunate things of COVID. Some of the things that came out of COVID was these great opportunities for some additional funding. So one of the things we were able to obtain through the Department of Health Services was a IV pumps. So a huge safety factor as we're trying to, we try to say we make everything 2 a.m. proof. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, when we're kind of a critical patient and trying to figure out some of these medications, got to do math at 2 a.m. when you're not quite awake. So the ability to actually purchase these IV pumps have created a much safer environment for our patients, and then a greater opportunity for our staff. And then last part there is just we are back in full swing of doing hands-only CPR courses. Also trying to reach out to, I can share, Dane County had a record number of cardiac arrest saves, or sudden cardiac arrest saves. Fitchburg is very high on that list. So one of the things we looked at and said, how do we reach, again, kind of back to the underserved or underrepresented populations, how do we get them taught this life-saving skill? So working with the deaf and hard of hearing community, hoping to reach out as well to some of the English as a secondary language communities starting the end of this year, and then driving that into next year. Partnering again with Dane County Emergency Management and Dane County is the ADRC that works with disability residents in Dane County to help actually fund some of those interpreter services. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting some more of those rolled out at the end of this year, the beginning of next year. And I kind of reached out to, that was the first bullet point on the noble initiative as well, but the notable initiatives for next year is increasing that ESL population to try to spread that sudden cardiac arrest survival, increase that opportunity to those people who are English as a second language. And then the second bullet point there, the huge shout out to appreciating having EPIC in our response district out in Verona. So each year we're offered an opportunity for grant purchases through them, as I had mentioned, right? Opportunities to the state, as well as opportunities through EPIC. So we were actually able to purchase it's called point of care ultrasound. And that's literally what it is. It is a handheld ultrasound. We purchased essentially some Samsung tablets. And this is pretty new in the entire field of EMS within the last year or two. Very new in the state of Wisconsin, very limited currently in the scope of practice. I only am aware of 4 other services in the state that are doing this, and we're all kind of setting that trend out there. It is going to be a gigantic learning curve for us. So we actually have all of the equipment. We've met a couple of times with the manufacturer of the equipment, meeting in a couple of weeks now with the rest of our physician team. We partner with UW Health Systems, their ER docs, their critical care docs, to actually come out to Fitchburg and teach our paramedics how to do field ultrasound. So there's a couple of reasons that we can do field ultrasounds that will help in patient care that are listed there. Many more things that we can potentially use it for kind of once we get this under our belt. So great opportunity for us and great for the patients of our community. As far as the financial summary, you'll see it there, or the significant budget changes. The first line item there is one of the requests in that significant budget for next year is an additional deputy chief of training and operations. I can can skip over that one right now and talk about it when that new position pops up. Other things you'll see in there is the same things I talk about essentially every year. We're still on track for the last 2 years. We've seen a significant call increase. We're on track this year for about a 20% increase over last year. I believe we hit 4,300 calls last year. If our current trend this year stays on track for 3 more months, we're actually going to top 5,000 calls. So with that additional call volume comes an increase in cost of fuel. Our aging fleet, right? We try to keep them all up on the road. So just that increasing cost of fuel, maintenance cost, repairs, as well as the second bullet point, again, feel like a broken record I share every year, just that rising cost of medical supplies. As much as we get those pumps for patient safety, we get ultrasound, all those things also come kind of with that additional cost of disposable equipment. One thing I did put in here for next year is updating our Knox boxes. If you're unfamiliar, so Knox boxes are those boxes that are outside of most public buildings, apartment complexes, that should we not be able to get in, the fire department, we also carry that key as well. We can access that key. That key provides us access to the building, to inside the building, in case somebody cannot buzz us into a building, and then the fire department doesn't have to break a door. The Knox boxes we currently use, because we are covering 2 fire districts, we actually have 2 Knox boxes on each one of our ambulances. The one in Fitchburg is maintained by the fire department. In Fitchburg, we maintain ours through the Verona Fire Department. But the key boxes we currently have have reached their end of life probably about 2 years ago. We've been able to kind of get some hand-me-downs and sustain what we have and install those in our ambulances over the last few years. But we are truly to the point of the software that maintains those Knox boxes has gone corrupt 2 times in the last couple of years. So it's just not really a sustainable thing, and just have put it into a budget line item. So it would be a one-time purchase for next year to actually replace all of those Knox boxes. With actually 1 box now with 2 key cores. Other part of that is that Knox box. Knox is actually a company. All of our medication vaults where we keep our controlled substances in the ambulances and in the stations are part of that Knox box system. We upgraded all of those about 2 years ago. So with that system, all of those Knox boxes are now controlled by a subscription into a cloud-based system. So with those boxes, now all I have to do is log into the cloud. I make 1 change, I add 1 person, I delete 1 person. And every 10 minutes, all of those boxes are updated. I don't have to physically go to every box and update them. Unlike our current Knox box systems with 2 boxes and 5 ambulances, each one of those boxes, right, somebody 10 times has to go and update those boxes. So upgrading all those Knox boxes with all of that on 1 system and easily update everything across the district with 1 keystroke. 2 other things you'll see there, the legal item that just went up, just because we're starting to see, I'm contacting more and more our attorney for some just advice on how to move forward with a lot of things. So we've just seen that cost go up over the last 2 years. And then the last one is the one-time line item that we put in there last year to put funds into the reserve. The reserve fund was removed for this coming year. So here's where I will talk about the additional deputy chief's position, which was included in the mayor's budget. Really, as I move forward, and you can see it in there, or as the district moves forward, as I said, we're going to hit 5,000 calls this year. We have 21 full-time employees, 15 part-time employees, 2 part-time interns, about 5 part-time EMTs. So we essentially have myself and the other deputy chief. We have 2 administrators running a staff of 45 part-timers and full-timers and part-timers. As we continue to add our ultrasound, as we continue to add our IV pumps, our current cardiac monitors, our ventilators, the training demand on our staff just continues to grow. In addition to just running those regular calls, again, 5,000 calls a year, plus if you look at attending city council meetings, Fitchburg, I believe it's somewhere between 4 and 5 assisted living, senior housing memory cares in the next couple of years. Oak Hill just added their assisted living unit, and I believe Verona has 2 assisted living and senior care housing projects on their radar for the next 5 years. So That is our patient population. Our call volume is only going to continue to rise. So asking for a second deputy chief, and what I would do then is essentially share some of that workload. Myself and Deputy Chief Dostalik Jeff, we're at capacity between the two of us, just running kind of day-to-day operations. This would actually allow us to really take that next step and be able to dig deeper into that training component, that quality assurance component that we already do. I truly believe probably one of the better jobs in the county as a service of making sure our patients are getting a great amount of care. And some of that is participation of staff too. We do have a couple staff positions who help with quality assurance, and really they're just the data geeks. And they get in there and make sure we're doing our job. But this position, those staff positions are still subject to run-in calls, of which those calls just continue to rise. So though we do have a middle layer of a lieutenant's type position, that is an ambulance position. So they're trying to do a lot of the task-oriented stuff of maintaining supplies, basic equipment, some of those needs, some of the call review stuff. But again, their days are getting busier as well. So since they're only working 2 days a week, covering their shifts, they go on vacation. There's a lot more need for somebody like an administrative physician who is free to work over the course of months and weeks and days, move throughout the district, not be subject to having to go on calls, and essentially increase the operational role, take some of my duties away so that I can kind of move some of my duties more towards kind of, again, improving our community outreach. Other justification that's in there is we are a 24/7 operation system. So we have 6 people on call, 3 ambulances on the streets. This week we actually have 4 of them because we have an ambulance out at World Dairy Expo. So we always have, unlike the fire department, police department, we don't have an OIC in-house 24 hours a day. That means Jeff and I take those phone calls from home. Now, our staff are very self-sufficient and they can operate very well, but we always have, one of the two of us is essentially always on call. 90% of those calls are sick calls, but the other 10% are truly operational. If someone gets hurt on shift, we have an issue with an ambulance, we have an issue with staffing, something large is happening outside of a county, who goes where. So the kind of back to the 24/7 operations are being run by 2 of us. So this position also would help kind of alleviate that of allowing us kind of one more, we would be still taking that every 3rd week role of constantly being available to answer those calls and pagers. So we try our best, but we one of us has to be in town, not in town, but available essentially at all times. So that is a long laundry list of the position justification for adding this second deputy chief, who would then, yes, do most operations and training stuff. That would make Jeff's role more of an administrative side of things, and then put me back into trying to see where we go from here. Any questions on that?
No, hearing none.
Okay.
You may continue. Thank you. Pardon? Oh, sorry. I thought that was the first item under. Okay. Very good, Chief. I still see no hands raised, so thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Have a good evening. Yes. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item is fire. And we have Chief Paul Vermacher here in chambers. Chief, the floor is yours.
Figured I'd give you a change of pace. Wouldn't have to look at a screen. You could look at me directly. Wanted to go through our significant accomplishments in 2023. And one of the things that we did is we hosted a number of different full-scale exercises, some with our Southwest IMTs, some with the state. What that allows us to do is to exercise our EOC and make sure that the space that we have designed operates the way that we intended. So that was significant in the sense that we have developed those partnerships and allowed the use of our facilities, and therefore have a better idea as to what we will need with that space moving forward. We also addressed the PFAS collect and dispose. We coordinated that through the Fitchburg Fire Department and the Dane County Fire Chiefs, but that was grant-funded collection money that allowed us to get rid of all of our PFAS foam. We have been working on gradual reduction in our PFAS foam usage. What we needed to get rid of was the expired foam. We coordinated a lot of trainings with Madison's Heavy Urban Rescue Team. We do that at Station 3, and we've been developing our tech rescue response. We hired a firefighter and a division chief of prevention and inspection. I've been working with the Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Association as a president. That has allowed us to address a number of things legislatively that impact departments of our size. Completed as of the end of this year, both of our tenders should be refurbished, so we anticipate that to be an accomplishment for this year. We also purchased a used utility with lower miles that allowed us to reduce the impact on the capital budget for utility replacement. We have received and completed the command car project, which is now in place and responding. We reprogrammed and replaced some of our portable and mobile radios. That was an item that was on last year's CIP, and we were able to complete this year. And then we upgraded and replaced the Fitchburg analog tactical system. That's a shared system between us, the Verona Fire Department, and Epic. It is also something that is used by both police departments and Fitchburg EMS. Some notable initiatives for 2024. We obviously are working to address our staffing plan, the one that was delivered with the Baker-Tilly study, along with some of the things that we have been working on from a recruitment and retention standpoint, knowing that we're seeing diminishing returns in the way of recruitment on our part-time side. So we want to be able to address that moving forward and not get too far behind the needs for staffing. In 2024, we will be specifying and purchasing a fire engine for replacement. This will replace our existing backup. We are revising our fire prevention and education programs to include a community fire academy. Difference between our fire academy and other academies that are out there is the fact that at the end of our academy, we hope that the community will be able to do things like CPR, stop the bleed, extinguishers, things that they can use in their everyday lives in the event that an emergency arises at home. And then they'll be introduced to certain things that the fire department has available to be able to explain some of the protective measures and the suppression measures that we have available. We are looking to implement a variety of municipal ordinance, actually two of them, with the emergency management services and the fire prevention and protection chapters. We would like to complete a community risk reduction audit to maybe address a standard of cover moving forward. These are terms that are typically used in accreditation. I'm not suggesting that we're moving toward accreditation. Obviously, that is an expense in and of itself. However, we can follow practices that closely resemble accreditation so that if we ever do move forward with that concept, hopefully it's fewer items that we have to do because we're well on our way to accomplishing those. And then we anticipate that there is going to be a change in the national reporting system. NIFRS, as it's known now, is going to be transitioning into what's known as NERIS, the National Emergency Response Information System. The reason this is notable is because of the fact that this is going to take into consideration some things from a community risk reduction standpoint, accounting for other things that fire departments do when they're on duty. All too often, we see that incident reporting is centered around response and doesn't necessarily take into consideration prevention, education, and those things that are also necessary in a fire department. Some significant changes in the budget from 23 to 24. We increased the fee for our license with fireworks. and that has actually gone up considerably. We added $500 for critical incident briefing. That wasn't necessarily something that we had in the past, and we established a line item that would then be able to account for those times when we bring in counselors. We added $3,000 to address the comprehensive physical with hearing test and pulmonary function assessments that are indicated with NFPA 1582. We decreased publications and subscriptions, recognizing that there were certain things that, although we traditionally used within the department, that we were no longer using. So we eliminated $1,800 from the budget there. The uniform allowance transition was also addressed, and that's a line item that is now addressed through payroll, at least on our career side. We added $3,000 to the operating budget. We anticipate doing an eventual regular mattress replacement so that we're not replacing all mattresses at once. It'll be a number of mattresses for our dormitory areas so that that line item is consistent and doesn't peak and valley. The increased medical supplies, as indicated by Fitch Rona, there are certain things that we anticipate are going to go up, and we also know that our AEDs, our DFibs, and portable suction units are going to require replacement. And we're going to do that gradually as well. Instead of replacing all at once, we're going to try to replace certain AEDs that we use most often and then gradually replace the rest. We shifted money from the copier lease into the IT fund, and then from a DATCAP standpoint, there was an increase in the budget for weights and measures, and that went into our emergency management fund. We did decrease our financial exposure with DANECOM, so we were able to reduce the DANECOM analog budget by $85,000. It's significant. That's something that we've been working on for a while, and we're able to address through Dane County. As a result, we don't own as much radio equipment, but at the end of life, we will not have to replace it, which is significant because it's millions of dollars worth of equipment that ultimately serves not just the city of Fitchburg, but the southern portion of Dane County. We are attempting to increase paid on call, paid on premises pay to address the minimums that they would typically bring in and try to raise that. This is the first step. We had hoped that we would raise it a little bit more, but we're also addressing some of the other priorities in the budget. So this will be a multi-step approach. And then we added an additional career firefighter in 2023 that the council approved, and moving that into the 2024 budget. So that's those things. The new proposals, this goes along hand in hand with the staffing plan that we submitted. So this ultimately addresses the first phase of that staffing plan. The career firefighter that was recently appointed in 2023 for the 2024 budget was approved in the mayor's budget, and so that is the first proposal. The second proposal was in the first phase. We addressed the hiring of 2 firefighters and a battalion chief. One of the firefighters was funded. This firefighter is not funded in the mayor's proposed budget. And so one of the things that I can say about that is one of the issues that we've already identified is that our recruitment on the paid on call, paid on premises side is going down, and we're trying to address the ratio of career firefighters versus paid on call, paid on premises to get us closer to something that's more manageable, to reduce the exposure to things like overtime, to be able to make our scheduling processes a little bit more predictable. It is a work in progress, and I know talking with some alders, they describe that as a heavy lift, and it is, but it's getting heavier every year, and our distance from where we need to be staffed is something that we're paying close attention to because it is impacting our ability to staff. So that's why you have the request for 2 firefighters in there. One is funded for this year, the other is not, at least proposed in the budget. The next thing that was included in the mayor's proposed budget was the increased paid on call, paid on premises minimum to $12 an hour. In your packet, you'll see that there's actually other distinctions that allow them to make more based on certification. There was a proposal to actually bring this into the city's existing part-time fee structure so that it's similar and it's not dependent on department as much as it is dependent upon step. So I think that's one thing that we're going to be looking at in coming years. For this year, 2024, it resembles an increase on the hiring rate to be $12 an hour. And then the last budget proposal for 2024 is the addition of a division chief, battalion chief. The reason why this position is important is because of the fact that it funds our OIC position. Whereas in Fitchburg, their OICs do not staff the car 24 hours a day. They cover the position from home. Our OICs are responsible for response in the city and do cover the car 24 hours a day. When I don't have an OIC in position, I end up staffing that position. And so part of this request is to allow my hours to reduce and to provide more shift supervision at the station 24 hours a day. This would be the second step, because I have one deputy chief that has accepted the responsibility of stepping down into the battalion chief role. This would be the second, and then a third was indicated in our staffing plan. So I know that that's beyond the 2024 budget, but it gives you some perspective as far as why this one was introduced. We do provide OIC services, incident command services, for Fitchburg Fire and Fitchburg EMS, because when we respond to a car accident, somebody assumes incident command. That's us. And so that's why this position is important, just giving you a little bit of a heads up and history on that position. So that's all I've got, unless you have any questions.
I'll open it up to the committee. Questions? Alder Gerhard, go ahead.
Quick question about the fireworks fee. Is that for people that sell fireworks in the city or shows?
No, very, very good question. Let me go back to that. Good thing I tabbed this, Alder Gerhard, because I'd have to page through it a lot slower. Increased fee for fireworks license from $30 a season to $5,000 a season. That actually may not be $5,000 a season. The fireworks license was indicated for those that sell them. One of the things that we are going to be proposing to the council in the short term is an update of our ordinance to maybe even eliminate the sale of fireworks in the city, which would then make that a moot issue. This was an incentive for us to increase the fee of licensing because of the fact that when fireworks are used in our community, there's the potential for damage. And this year, our Department of Public Works actually had to do a considerable amount of cleanup, specifically in McKee Farms Park. Yep. That did cost us money then. So we would prefer to not sell fireworks altogether. It sends a mixed message. We're in one breath, we're saying that we don't allow them. They're against the law. Anything that goes up or blows up is illegal. But then we allow sales in a commercial loophole. We would prefer our ordinance to specifically state that we do not. And we're going to make sure that that is consistent with our neighbors. We are working right now with Madison Fire, with Sun Prairie Fire. ultimately reaching out to Verona, maybe McFarland, those departments that ultimately are affected by the sale of fireworks and when people use them.
That's great to hear. I look forward to seeing that. Is that something we'll see this year or probably next year?
We're working with the city administrator on that, and it's something that we're, like I said, trying to collaborate so that our ordinance isn't vastly different than our neighbors.
Okay. I have more questions.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I'll just add, if I may, we're looking at Q1 next year to have something in front of council.
We also want to be able to give those property owners that typically have allowed sales and probably had some incentive to allow the tent in their parking lot. We want to give them enough fair warning that it's not going to be allowed.
Great. And then a quick question I had about the new fire. This is, I guess, more of a Misty question, but for the new fire engine, I assume that there was a replacement fund for that, or is that pre-replacement funds?
The one that we bought used?
No, the one. Sorry, the one for next year, because you talked about.
No, that's not a replacement fund item. Not at this point.
Not at this point. Okay.
The fire engine, the specification, right? That was because that's we're anticipating. I think that's in the budget for about $900,000.
Yeah, I was thought that around $1 million.
And we have already had a shot across the bow that it might be more than that.
Okay. I'm just curious because it's one of those things. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the replacement funds and the need for them especially for those massive capital purchases. Although, I mean, I guess we could also consider maybe it's debt financed. I'm not sure, and maybe we don't have to answer this question tonight. I was just more curious about if that was a replacement fund situation or if we're looking at taking out debt for that. Okay, we can talk about it later. And then the last one is just want to mention about all the staffing listed out. Really appreciate, and we had a great discussion in personnel about your 5-year staffing plan or the phases that you talked about. So, and that was obviously great information, but I just wanted to say, just generally speaking about how this document was put together, I appreciated that all those proposals for the next 5 years were included with information from the staffing studies included as part of those proposals. You know, we don't really have, unlike the CIP where we have a 10-year plan for capital expenditures, we don't have that for staffing until kind of now. I think obviously the staffing study helps with that, but I feel like it's really good to have it in the budget document so we can be thinking long-term about how we make these stepwise changes. So I just commend staff for making that happen and including these because I think it's really helpful for public understanding and for understanding for the council.
So one of the things with the staffing plan, and I know we're sort of venturing off agenda here a little bit, but one of the things that we tried to do is establish it with some realistic expectation based on the capability of funding. A staffing plan without a funding mechanism is a wish list. It's not a staffing plan. Staffing plan with some anticipated funding, how it can actually happen is more realistic. Once we put something on paper, that becomes the expectation, right? And then people want to see us deliver on it. So we delivered the staffing plan with that thought, given the fact that there are going to be changes with shared revenue. There have been changes with shared revenue. A lot of that is specific to public safety. At least that's the way it was lobbied. So those are some of the things that we took into consideration. And then depending on, we've already had the presentation on things like the referendum, gives us a better idea of what a referendum would look like with certain elements of that staffing plan covered.
Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And one last thing, thanks for working out that reduction in the DaneCom, that $85,000 savings, and the forethought of not having to replace that equipment in the future. I think it's great that you're able to work out something that you feel still maintains the safety of the emergency facilities, but with a reality towards the budget limitations that we face. So thank you for working that out.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's $85,000 a year, right? So that's a reoccurring expense that we were assuming, and I'm happy that it is appropriately placed at this point in the county's hands.
Can I answer Gabriella's question quick?
Yes.
So the engines is borrowed for. It's on page 347 in the CIP. So it's borrowed for in 2024, and then the replacement 5 years from now is also borrowed for.
And we'll be doing a debt what do you call it? Issuance?
Issuance?
Yeah.
Yep.
In 2024 for multiple years.
That's the current plan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
So was I a breath of fresh air? I mean, you get to look at the city administrator, might as well look at the fire chief too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening. Next on the agenda is the police, and we have Chief Morales. So, Chief, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Will do. I want to introduce Dana Schmidt, who helps keep us grounded with our operational budget for the police department. She does a great job, and she's a great security blanket for me here today to help us get through this. So if there's any questions, I'm sure Dana will be able to help us out. So for significant events, we consolidated fees for police reports in a single into a single fee. We consolidated dispatch audit records fees into another fee. We increased fees for a flash drive from $20 to $25 due to the increase in cost of purchase. We removed fees for printed photos as they no longer need to be printed from negatives due to the digital photography. We added alert media costs to computer-related repairs and maintenance for all city departments to use. We increased ballistic vests for this year and protective gear due to the more officers needing replacements for this year. We increased tuition reimbursement costs for to employees for reimbursements under city personnel policies. We moved firearms, tasers, parts and supplies from equipment expenses to operating supplies. We moved simulations, active shooter, and airsoft supplies from equipment expenses to operating supplies. We shifted $1,900 from copier lease and maintenance to the IT fund. We also increased small equipment replacement for equipment that was previously not accounted for in the cost increase of equipment. We reclassified 2 lieutenants to captain, and we removed vacant record specialists and added a new executive assistant. For significant accomplishments, we sustained police service despite operating on average at 75% staffing capacity and added the town of Madison. We initiated monthly community meetings. We added the department's monthly report to the website. We began a design phase for the police facility. Notable initiatives for 2024 is to expand and revive our community outreach efforts, such as the Bike Patrol, Neighborhood Resource Officers, and Community Police Academy. And we want to continue to facilitate the police facility project. I went reverse on those 2 pieces, but yeah, I have those. For the request for 2024, we try to get in a package deal to reclassify 2 captains to 2 lieutenants into captains, just based on the span of control that's going on with the increase in staffing for the Fitchburg Police Department. To do that, the captains also need an executive assistant to help them with the administrative demand that's coming through there, and to increase in a 5-year plan, 1 of 3 lieutenants, 1 per shift, that will relieve the 2 captain positions of some of the lieutenant duties that they're doing. That would be the 2024 ask. We were able to obtain the reclassification of lieutenants to captains and an executive assistant. The 5-year plan that we do have was submitted to the Baker Tilly, and that was brought up in the explanation of our staffing. They concur with the way we would like to grow the City of Fitchburg Police Department within the next 5 years. And I can go into those positions if we need to for the following years or not. Got it. Any questions on that?
we do have one question from Alder Gerhardt.
Just wanted to say I was really pleased that we were able to get the 2 promotions to captain, and also that I didn't realize that the executive assistant position was going to happen, so I was pleased to see that because I know executive assistant positions I think are much needed in all departments, but I assume very much so in your department. So I know we couldn't provide a lot of what you requested, but I was happy to see that we were able to. I was happy to see in the budget a few of the changes that we talked about in personnel.
Absolutely, and that's why I find it important to bring Dana here with me, because they do a lot of work for you. And again, we talk about single point of failure, but having that position, now somebody will learn her position in the event that something were to happen. And that's where we fail. If somebody gets sick, any one of us can get sick and be out of our job due to our illness today. And who's going to do that work? And I think when it comes to budget or handling some of these administrative duties, it's very quick and very easy to drop the ball and now have some integrity questions coming because we don't know where the money went.
Any additional questions? Hearing none. Anything further from the chief?
Thank you for listening.
Yes, but thank you for your presentation this evening. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
You as well.
Very good. Moving on from police to administration, and we have City Administrator Chad Brecklin. You're speaking to this item?
I am, yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Significant accomplishments noted in 2023 include the city's 40th anniversary. Of course, there are many other notable initiatives and things that administration works on with a variety of different staff and departments throughout the year, many of which are noted in each respective department's significant accomplishments. New initiatives for 2024 include transition of a Healthy Neighborhoods initiative from a pilot program to a permanent initiative, update the comprehensive plan, as well as evaluate diversity, equity, and inclusion community work group. And I should mention that this is the elected officials portion, is it not? Yep. Significant budget changes from 23 to 24, increase in publication, subscription, and dues accounts to include the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Mayors Innovation Project. Moved Dane by a local membership from elected official budget to CETA, and increased training and travel for mayor attendance at conferences. Any questions related to that? Yes.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I guess it's a question that's not addressed here, but in terms of last year when we talked about moving the Fitchburg Star funding towards newsletter, I know we should have a discussion about that soon because there's obviously a lot going on there. But is that money? Obviously, that money exists in this budget, but was that money removed for this 2024 budget, or does that exist? Okay,
it's all still there.
And is it under the admin budget?
It's spread across admin, utility, refuse, recycling, and rec, I believe. So. And I am paying attention, Ms. Teach.
But so then is it still allocated to a city newsletter, or is it allocated to the Fitchburg Star? I guess I haven't seen it called out specifically.
Yeah, I think we listed it as community outreach and communications. So it gives us some flexibility on deploying that money, in a variety of different ways potentially. As a reminder, we are working with an internal communications work group consisting of several city departments and looking at all of our communication and outreach efforts. And ultimately, the goal of that work group is to develop an organized and cohesive communication strategy for the city as a whole. And as you heard from Jeremy's presentation in the FACT TV budget portion, I think there's probably a larger conversation that should be had with the council about, communications positions and potentially, some reorganization of job functions within city departments here to help with that whole overall communication and cohesive strategy.
Great. Yeah, just happy to see that we have it. We still have it budgeted. Obviously, we haven't figured out what to do with that yet, but that it's maintained into going into next year. And then may I suggest that we the money that we didn't use this year, I'd like if we can consider rolling that over into next year so that we can have a bigger budget to work with as we decide whatever we want to deploy. Just wanted to put that out there.
Sure.
Thank you.
So moving into the administration side of the budget here. Significant accomplishments include orientating new department heads this year, specifically assessing IT and Public Works Director. We also have hired a Deputy City Administrator, as you recently met. And then, of course, we participated and helped coordinate with other staff and an internal work group, the citywide staffing and organizational study conducted by Baker Tilly as a few of the highlights. Looking for notable initiatives for 2024. As you know, the council has approved a budget amendment that would allow us to use ARPA TID closure funds for a citywide strategic plan. So I'm looking to be able to do that next year. Ideally, we might even get the RFP put together prior to the end of this year and get that out so council can consider it early next year at the latest as far as approval. And also we have upcoming negotiations with both our police and fire unions in 2024. Notable budget changes. We made a concerted effort in working with the mayor, human resources, finance, and listening to our employees. A benefits survey was conducted earlier this year, and that provided some valuable feedback. And I'm pleased to say that the mayor worked really hard on recruitment and retention efforts as it relates to employees in this particular budget, as you probably have already noticed. Some of those things include the increase in holiday premium. I won't read those. I see Misty's moving me along. You guys can read them. I could take the subtle, not so subtle hint. Here I am, the one talking about time limits, and there I go. So you give me a soapbox, Misty, and I can use it now and then. So anyway, she's got them listed, the holiday premium for various departments to compensate those who are required as part of their regular duties to work on holidays. And then an adjustment to on-call pay policy. This is one we heard initially from our highway, parks, and utility maintenance workers in regards to how competitive the city's on-call pay currently was in relation to other communities. In working with human resources and others, we took a look at other municipalities, and we were in fact low. And this makes an adjustment to that compensation to bring us at least in the upper half. We still won't be the highest paid in the on-call compensation category, but certainly making some notable improvements. And then we're looking to better coordinate across multiple departments how we provide on-call compensation. Right now, we have several different ways in which an employee could be compensated for on-call and various different compensation amounts for that. And this proposal will bring a more unified approach across multiple departments and potentially, upon approval of the Personnel Committee, if this is approved, determine whether it'll be an opportunity for straight pay or comp pay, depending upon the employee's choice when they're required to be on call. An adjustment to the PTO bank and consolidation and increase. One of the main factors driving this particular proposal is the amount of vacation that is afforded to a new hire. Currently, we only offer 2 weeks of vacation for a new hire, and we are finding that many of our new hires raise that as a potential barrier to taking a job offer with the city. And the vast majority of our neighboring and competing municipalities have also transitioned to allowing 3 weeks of vacation for new hires. So along with that, and then pairing the fact that we have several different levels, or I guess categories of personal time off to include vacation, holiday, floating holiday, and personal holiday, it made sense from a accounting perspective, so to speak, and management perspective to consolidate all of those existing categories into one PTO time off. And in doing so, we're also adding one additional day to everyone's PTO bank, if you will. So no one loses any time in this conversion. Everyone's time that they currently had is maintained. It's just merely moved from several different buckets to one bucket, and then there is a net increase of 1 day. And of course, the ability to then offer more vacation or personal time off for those who are seeking it when they are hired initially by the city. And then paid parental leave. This is one of the benefits that was regularly cited in the employee benefits survey that employees would hope to see get implemented. Obviously, there is a notable cost to this particular leave benefit. That's why you're looking at starting with 2 weeks. We had considered as much as 6 weeks initially, and in looking at that, the cost obviously can add up relatively quickly on that. So we think this is a good kind of jumping off point for this particular benefit. And we're hopeful that the council is supportive of this based upon the feedback we received in the benefit survey. There are several new positions related to the Baker Tilly study that folks have seen. One of them is a communications director. I have included it in the administrative budget. You have a couple of different paths available for this particular position to be implemented. Jeremy has indicated one potential path. Admittedly, I see that path as being having a few more cons associated with it versus just creating a new director position and having a competitive process for it. So that would be more than likely the recommended path that I would suggest the city take. But ultimately, again, this is part of a larger conversation that the council and city staff should have about how we're going to handle our communications overall throughout the city. A new community and leisure services director position was also included in this budget. That again is a Baker Tilly study recommendation, as well as there's other reorganizations cited within that study. So those would include, without any additional positions, would be moving the parks and forestry operations into the Public Works Department. One of the reasons for that, or primary reasons for that, is the efficiency in communications and operations that can take place. As you may or may not know, currently parks maintenance operations are housed within the Public Works Department, and the parks maintenance supervisor reports directly to the Public Works Director. And obviously there is a parks Recreation and Forestry Director who runs separate functions but relies upon the parks maintenance operations to get work done within the park system. So we view this as being an efficiency from a reporting perspective and communication perspective. And then forestry also works with Public Works and engineering quite a bit as well. So again, a lot of these things tend to make sense, at least from perspectives, including Baker Tilly's, to look at considerations of this move. And then if we pull out parks and forestry and move those into Public Works, that leaves the Recreation Department where it's currently at. And we think there could be some efficiencies in creating a director to oversee both recreation as well as the senior center. They both use the same facility. There can be some efficiencies gained by common oversight and leadership, ensuring that both departments are working collaboratively together, and that in most situations it's relatively seamless regardless of the entrance to the building that you use, whether it's the one up here on the upper level or the one on the lower level, that you're getting a cohesive message, and you really don't have an idea of which necessarily facility you've entered. And I'm not suggesting that there are widespread problems or any issues that are driving this. Again, this is more of an efficiency and coordination, collaboration move that we think will pay off dividends in the long run. And then finally, as the city continues to determine its place in expansion of social service initiatives, This department head would be a logical place to then insert either additional staff and or oversight into programs such as the neighborhood navigators, the hub facility, potential teen center, those sorts of things. Also added back the administration intern, although this is not a 24 proposal, so I'm not going to talk about that. And then finally, do you have any questions on the court, or on, I'm sorry, on the administration budget before I move into courts? No. Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
And then looking at the courts budget, significant accomplishments in 2023 include hiring a community service liaison position that filled an existing vacancy, and then processed approximately 1,500 parking tickets over the course of the year. Notable initiatives for 2024 will be translation of various court forms into Spanish for better customer service. And then there are no notable budget changes from 23 to 24. Questions
Very good.
on courts?
Yeah. Is there any questions? Gabrielle? No? All right. That concludes your portion, correct?
Sure does.
Since there are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to wrap up and next steps. I'm turning this over to Misty.
Yes. So also included in the document is the proposed fee schedule. So you notice that all of the time fees were changes. It should have shown up as a significant change. So those should have been pointed out to you, but the full fee schedule is also included in the budget. The schedule is also in here, which we'll talk about. So tonight was the information gathering stage. Next week, Tuesday, at our regularly scheduled council meeting, we have a public hearing. That'll be the chance for the public to weigh in on the mayor's proposed budget and for you to kind of take their ideas and consider them for your council proposed amendments. Council proposed amendments are due next week, Friday. If you do have some ideas, please share those with the department head that's impacted, just so they can help make sure that you're aware of all the context and kind of the background of what might need to be considered as you're thinking about your amendments. Those are due Friday. I'm happy to help you as well with whatever drafting that could be helpful. Just make sure you give me a little bit of time to help put those together. And then the form that you'll use for those proposed amendments, the copy of it is in the document, but I also emailed it to all of council members. This is the electronic version that I would appreciate you using for those amendments, just to kind of streamline the process of putting it together. And so when you're doing it, the title would always start with an action word. You'd have who it's submitted by. Strongly prefer it to be one alder. If two alders are working on something, obviously you can support it at the floor, but for walking quorum perspectives, it's much preferred to be just one alder that actually submits the form or submits the amendment. Then this first big box is your description, so what it is that you want to change in the mayor's proposed budget. The second box is the rationale or the why you want to make the change. I have a box then for notes, and then there's a box for all of the accounting factors of it. So that's kind of the next steps in the process. Once we get all of those amendments, we'll put them together. Staff will have a chance to put together a staff memo to make sure that all of the information around that proposal is considered as you're making your final decisions. And then the October Committee of the Whole meeting, that's where we'll talk about all of the council proposed amendments, so you can have free for all, as much discussion as you would like. In fact, we encourage you to have all of your discussion at that open meeting. And then November 14th, at the regularly scheduled council meeting, we'll do all of the rest of the council business. And then at the end, we'll do just the budget part. So we'll go one by one through the amendments. You can amend the amendment, but you can't bring anything new to the floor, because we want to make sure that it's able to be vetted, not just by staff, but also by the public, so people know what we're considering changing. But tweaks to the amendments can be made. And then there's also a resolution for those special procedures, same as last year. The plan would be that we would go through all the amendments, do all of your voting. If at the end of it we don't meet levy limits, there'd be an opportunity to go back and re-vote on some of those amendments. Again, no changes from the floor, because we want to have a very transparent process, but would at least have an opportunity to make sure those could be re-voted in order to get to a balanced budget that meets statutes. So that's kind of the next steps. Here for Finance Committee purposes, we do have the resolution on the floor that will need to get recommended to council, just with the understanding that it's subject to all of those amendments that we talked about.
Is there, maybe I missed this, the rules for the evening of, are they out there somewhere?
Yeah, it's referred out at it was referred out at the last meeting. So it should be in the packet to the last council meeting.
To the last council
And then we'll
meeting.
discuss them at the committee of the whole meeting, and then we'll vote on that resolution on the night of budget adoption, kind of to kick
The
off
actual
that
rules
process.
on the process.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, very good. Are there any other questions before we move on to the action item? All right, hearing none. Do I have a motion to move Resolution R-187-23, adopting the 2024 annual city operating budget?
I'll move approval.
All right. All right, we have a motion for approval made by Alder Gerhart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Announcements. I have no additional announcements. Committee members, Misty, I see shaking of heads, no. All right. We'll move on to item 6, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Jim?
I move adjournment.
All right. Motion for adjournment made by Alder Wheeler. All in favor signify by saying aye.
There's a delay.
Aye.
That's why there's pause. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:59 p.m. Thank you.